Everybody, we're back here at the Tank at Advertising Week with Adobe's Think Tank. We're here with John Hackett, SVP of Digital and Emerging Technology at Publicis and Newrun. How are you? Nice to have you.
Great, glad to be here.
We're excited to talk today a little bit about the future of digital experiences. So when you think of this big conversation that we're having with a whole bunch of different people, we talk about the technology that enables these digital experiences. You talk about the people that consume them and the marketers that create them. Talk to me a little bit about what Newrun and Publicis does to create really dynamic and cool digital experiences.
I think first and foremost, it's just understanding, what the consumer really wants in the experience, right? I think that's like a part of the whole process that sometimes gets lost in a lot of agencies, and I think we really put the consumer experience up front and really think about human-centered design and holistic experiences. So it's really about understanding what the client's objectives are, and then understanding what the consumer's need states are around those objectives, and then trying to craft communications and digital products and services that help solve those particular need states of the consumer. So it's much more rooted in thinking about what drives the consumer and how that links back to what the brand's trying to stand for in that space.
Interesting. So I love the thing that you brought up, that was human-centered design.
Right.
So I'd love you to dig in a little bit more and talk about how does Publicis and any company who really wants to be successful in digital experiences, how do they focus? What do they need to do to focus more on the human or the consumer element of this before they start the process of buying tech or finding companies that will help them with analytics or whatever else?
Yeah, I think it's sometimes a struggle. It's sometimes easy to get caught up in what's cool about the tech or just following what other people in the space are doing. It's sort of a little echo chamber of the marketing advertising world. You're just kind of like keeping up with the Joneses. And you can easily you can still make really interesting experiences, but I think they really sing for the marketing advertising world, but then kind of fall short on consumer KPIs, and it's really easy to kind of get caught up in that whole spin. And I think it's really about deep research, data, analytics, really understanding what we can find from data and insights around how those consumers behave, where they're spending their time, and then crafting communications and experiences around that versus sort of chasing what everybody else is doing. And it's, sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you have to really kind of pull the client into the right point of view on something, when I think sometimes maybe they're just thinking about what's good for the marketing world or what's good about their personal KPIs within the organization. And I think it's on us to sort of push them into the right space based on what we know about the consumers that they're trying to target and those behaviors. So if we know, they're spending a lot of time in a specific app or platform, that we really should think about crafting something that makes sense in that platform versus trying to take something that isn't crafted for that space and shoving it into that space. Which I think we've all seen like weird, awkward scenarios where it's sort of obtuse to the consumer once they experience it, right? Like the message has either been morphed or lost because it's sort of gone through this translation process, and then when the consumer experiences it, it doesn't make sense to them or doesn't resonate with them. And I think that's when you're too top down and not enough like top down meeting bottom up. I think you get kind of lost there. If it's just top down, it's sort of just the message just kind of gets like shoved in and mutated. And I think we saw that really early when people first started to play with social media. It was they took the medium they knew and they shoved it into social, and it took a while for them to learn that you sort of have to craft stuff that's right for that ecosystem, versus trying to shove a comms message into a conversational platform, which I think can be really kind of awkward, right? Like, there's this great quote that, gosh, I forget the name of the guy. He's a really funny artist who does all these little comics, you something or other, but he's got this great comic. If you talk to somebody in person like advertisers talk to people, they'd probably punch you in the face, and that always sticks with me. You don't want people punch in the face. So I always try to think about, if this were a one-to-one human interaction, how awkward might that be, or how can we make that actually feel authentic?
So talk to me, John, with your role in kind of overseeing for Publicis, John reports up to the Chief Digital Officer,
Yes.
John Winchester over there. So how do you keep clients and internal customers from just jumping at the shiny objects? You think of all this new tech that comes out regularly. How do you determine what really needs to be used and leveraged?
It's definitely tricky. I think it again comes down to, is what we're going to make actually going to be, again, useful to the end user? I think you can easily get tripped up by something and go make a chatbot that's just a really awkward, strange experience, right? If it's just too robotic or too much like I think the chatbots people are used to on like really bad customer service chat things that just kind of are trying to quickly answer questions based on a decision tree. I think that could be really awkward. So yeah, it's tough. I think sometimes you can kind of take that excitement and then I think capture it and then focus it in the right way so that you're still, capitalizing on their energy about something, but at the same time, make sure that you don't totally lose sight of creating a really useful consumer experience, right? It's got to be valuable and legible to the consumer, or like it's for no one. It's just for the marketers, right? And then you got to be tactical about how you go at that and sort of take their energy and focus it in the right way. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes, you just end up getting to something at the end that might be a little bit off, but at least you did your best to get it as close to a mark that I think resonates with consumers. So it's definitely it's an art. It's not a science to kind of land them in the right spot. And I think data and analytics and insights about who you're going after and what makes sense for them is your best quiver, I guess, arrow in your quiver to sort of help make that argument the best you can.
So I thought that last point you brought up about it being art and science was what was kind of interesting. I know you said that it was just it was art, or it was science and not an art.
And art more than
science.
Yeah.
I'd love you to talk about the need for both art and science.
Right.
When you think about the need for data, you've talked so much about having this be consumer driven.
Yeah.
And having it be focused on, what does a consumer really want? Do they want a chatbot? You need a chatbot just to have a chatbot? Or why are you creating the digital experience you're creating?
Yeah. Okay. It is art and science. Actually, I look at myself as someone who's between two different fields. I'm a mix of like design and technology, and I think it's at that intersection that you get really interesting ideas. I think if it's a little too much of one or the other, might be a little obtuse or a little this or that. I think kind of striking that right balance is important. So
just talk to me about the need. When creating these digital experiences, the need for making sure the art and the science are sound to create the best experience.
Okay. Right. And I think that's really about making sure the right mix of people are working together to craft whatever the strategy is and the idea. So I think it's equally a mix of folks that wear a more tried and true traditional creative hat, and an equal mix of people from strategy, data science, technology, analytics, all in the room working towards the same objective, versus a thing where you maybe kind of section people out in kind of more of a waterfall or traditional approach. I think it's that alchemy when you get the right mix of people together, and it's the guy from data science and the creative director and the tech person and the strategist all having an equal seat at the table, having a conversation about how to craft that thing.
That's interesting. So we've been here with John Hackett, SVP of Emerging Technologies at Newrun and Publicis, talking about this need for people to work together, the need for the data scientist and the technologist and the designer and how many others to have an equal seat at the table so that this is an integrated, full experience, rather than just saying, the designer designed something cool and pretty, so now we're going to throw it up.
Okay.
And also focusing so much on the needs of the consumer, making sure that doesn't get lost, that no matter what we're creating, that we know that that's what the consumer wants, because we can listen and they can tell us. Again, John, thanks for coming today.
It was great.
We'll be back in a few minutes with more.